school's broadcast journalism team, learning the art of telling stories and connecting with people. And she was good at it, not just in that case, but in real life too. And she worked as a server at a small family-owned restaurant called The Kitchen on Main in Fortville, Indiana. It was her first job, but it mattered to her. It wasn't just a job. The owner said that Haylee was a perfect fit almost immediately. That even though she was just a server, she connected easily with people, coworkers, customers, people she had just met. She wasn't one of those people that just showed up and did her job and went home. She cared. She would go out of her way for people. She would pick up little gifts. She would support the other local small businesses. Just kind of thoughtful things. The things that people aren't really taught to do. They just do them. It's kind of who they are. So Bo talked about Haylee in a way that just kind of sticks with you, a way that I wish my dad spoke about me, truthfully. He said that he was grateful that she wasn't in a rush to get her driver's license because it meant more time together for them, more car rides home, more conversations when he picked her up after her shift. And he said that she did push herself too. She could be a little more reserved, but she stepped out of her comfort zone to take that job at the Kitchen on Main, and he was proud of her for that. And from the outside, this is a life that looks pretty steady, especially for a teenager. Supportive family, good job, school, friends, a job she actually enjoyed, and she just didn't seem like the kind of kid that I'm gonna tell you about what happens next. So, even from the most loving homes, when everything looks okay on the surface, teenagers can still feel alone sometimes. They're figuring out themselves. They're testing boundaries. They're looking for connection, and sometimes they find it in places we don't expect. And sometimes that's all it takes. And Haylee was building an unusual connection for quite some time. It did not start in person. It wasn't a chance meeting on the street. No stranger approached her in public. It started online. 39-year-old Tyler Thomas met Haylee Buzbee through an app called Discord. Now, I'm quite familiar with Discord. Sean uses it to talk to all of his gaming friends because they don't exchange their phone numbers. They shout out through Discord and, hey, you want to get online, etc., etc. In the same case of Haylee and Tyler, they were playing games together. Games like League of Legends or Roblox. a straight line. They move from server to server to server, so no single server ever knows both who sent the message and who it's going to. So like I said, there's no phone number required to sign up, no email address, no real identifying information. And according to the actual app itself, it doesn't collect data about your device or your location. So there's very, very little tying an actual account to a person. And according to investigators in this case, even recovering these messages can be nearly impossible without a specific access code. And if that code is gone, so are the conversations. Now, it is listed as an 18 and up app. However, it doesn't make you prove that you're 18. Like, it doesn't require you to scan your driver's license or your ID or anything like that. It says it's not supposed to be used by minors, but again, that doesn't stop it from happening. And if you think about it, this app really kind of sounds like a dream for somebody trying to not be discovered as who they say they are, if that makes sense. So this is kind of where it gets comfortable or uncomfortable for parents. It removes visibility. It creates a space where these conversations can happen where no one can see them, which I thought Snapchat was kind of like that, but I've learned since my true crime days, they can recover those conversations. But this app is really creepy to me. There's no way to check every so often what is even being shared by your child, let alone what someone is saying or sending to your child. And this is exactly the kind of environment that somebody that I'm about to tell you about was looking for. Once conversations between Tyler and Haylee move there, it's a lot harder for anybody to actually see what's happening. Investigators say that the two of them had been communicating for over a year. More than a year of conversations, so this isn't something that was some impulsive plan. This guy was taking his time, earning her trust, learning her personality, understanding her routine, her interests, her world. This was a legitimate investment in this guy's life. Most dangerous people like this don't rush. They know that if they come in loud and obvious with their intentions, the risk is that they scare this other person off and have to find a new victim. So instead, they take their time, they learn what to say, and they pay attention to when to say it, and they figure out what matters to you, and slowly they become a part of it. So for the first year or so of Haylee's friendship with Tyler, this is all happening on a screen. Messages, chats. But of course, at some point, that changes. Tyler did not stay behind the screen. He showed up more than once. The first time happened on June 5th. Bank records place him at a restaurant where Haylee worked. A small, family-owned place in Fortville, Indiana. The same place that she was a server, the first job. This is the first time that investigators can confirm they were in the same place. Not just online, but in real life. By July, their communication is still ongoing. Snapchat messages show that they were planning to call each other. And at one point, Haylee says, if neither parent is home, I can probably call until like 5. Which tells you that she felt like they already knew each other. They were comfortable. And then on July 2nd of 2025, a photo is taken on Tyler's investigators say show a person who looks a lot like Haylee kissing Tyler's neck. Now, this isn't just casual online messaging anymore. This is real-world contact. And illegal. The line between online and offline is completely erased, and that's how this works. It doesn't just jump from stranger to something obvious. It's slow conversation, familiarity, and then to meeting in the real world. And at this point, this grown man has access to this underage girl who trusted him far too much, and no one in her life had any idea. The last time that Haylee's parents saw her was the night before she disappeared, January 5th of 2026, around 10 p.m. They would later say that Haylee's behavior wasn't in any way unusual that night. Nothing stood out anyway, just a normal night. But sometime in the early morning hours of January 6th, between 2:30 and 5 a.m., something changed. Most people are asleep, but around 3 a.m., dogs start barking. Not for very long, but just enough that a few neighbors reported hearing them. They woke up, but it stopped pretty quickly. Around that same time, a dark-colored SUV is seen driving through the neighborhood. Security cameras pick it up, driving slowly, passing through the streets of Haylee's neighborhood. Inside the house, Haylee's phone disconnects from the family Wi-Fi, and by the morning, she's gone. Her dad, Bo, and her stepmother find a note. It says that she had run away. She asks them not to search for her, and at first, that's what this looks like, a teenager leaving by their own hand, by their own choice. There are no signs of forced entry, no signs of a struggle, nothing is broken or out of place, so it's not like somebody came through the window in the middle of the night and abducted her. Which means one of two things. She left on her own, or she believed she was safe enough to walk out that door. The idea of writing a note asking her family not to bother looking for her is bizarre to me, because as if they would ever agree to that. So at first, investigators are really trying to find anything, any clue as to where she may have went. They try to ping her phone, but there's nothing. No signal, no location. It's either off or in airplane mode. So that means that whoever has this phone doesn't want anybody to find it. By January 7th, the police make their first public post asking for help finding Haylee. And her father shares it and writes, "She may not be close to home, so we're trying to get this message as far out as we can." Unfortunately, days go by with very little information, and then something is discovered. Family members are able to gain access to Haylee's Snapchat, and inside they find conversations with an adult male. They don't know who he is yet, but they do know that it's inappropriate and something is not right. A few days later, Bo posts again. Haylee is still missing, and we believe she did not act alone and is in a dangerous situation. Behind the scenes, investigators are starting to piece things together. They pull surveillance cameras from the street, and they see the vehicle. License plate readers pick it up, and they track it, and they're able to identify the owner. But the owner, a woman, tells them something kind of unexpected. She was in Florida that day, but the man that she lived with, Tyler Thomas, may have been using her car. So she gives the police his phone number, and that's when things really start to blow open in this investigation. Because once the police have his number, they can track his movements. And what they see isn't random. His phone places him in very specific locations 6th, to the area where Haylee lives. And then it goes back to Ohio, to a group of Airbnb properties in Hocking County, and it stays there through the night and into the morning. On January 7th, it moves again to an area near the North County Trail in Wayne National Forest, and it stays there for nearly 5 hours. So police wonder, what is this man doing for 5 hours in this remote area? Is he hiking or something more nefarious? After that, the phone returns back to Columbus, Ohio, to Tyler's home. On January 16th, the police go there because he's now the last person to be seen with Haylee via street cams. And his phone movements are pretty interesting to them. Why was he in Indiana, in her neighborhood, the night that she disappeared? So at first, he kind of bluffs them, and he's like, oh, I was just looking around, checking out a few different places I always wanted to visit, including an apple orchard. Like, what? Police don't believe him, and they can place his car in the neighborhood where Haylee disappeared, so they call his bluff, and the story changes, and he finally admits, yes, he picked Haylee up, but he dropped her off at an intersection in Eaton, Ohio, at her request. She was safe and alive. However, the police are not stupid, and his phone records do not support that. Not even close. On January 21st, police search his house, and they take all of his electronic devices, phones, laptops, anything that might hold any evidence. And they search both the vehicle and the house that Tyler lives in to take everything. And they bring him in again, and they interview him, and they ask him about Haylee. How old is she? He says, well, I thought she was 18 at first. He admits later he found out she wasn't. And he says, yes, he rented an Airbnb on January 4th for the two of them to stay in. He tells them the plan to pick her up started around Christmas, and that they decided on the 5th. He denies hurting her, denies doing anything to her, and says that he believes she is alive and safe. So they don't need to worry about him because he didn't do anything wrong. And the cops are like, well, would you tell us if you did? And he says, no, he wouldn't. And then he asks for a lawyer, and the interview ends. So by the end of January, investigators believe that they know exactly who did this, and they continue to build their case. On the 31st, they find some explicit images of Haylee on Tyler's phone, time-stamped January 6th, the day she disappeared. Now, of course, he tried to delete them, and there is more things found on his phone involving other minors between the ages of 7 and 10, which made me want to be sick. So he's charged in the state of Ohio for material involving a minor and tampering with evidence. The following day, on February 1st, there's a press conference. And Fisher officials stand in front of cameras and say what no family wants to hear. That after an extensive investigation, they believe that 17-year-old Haylee Buzbee is deceased. That same day, investigators take Tyler Thomas to a wooded area in Wayne National Forest where his cell phone had pinged. According to court records, he shows them where to look, and law enforcement begins digging, and I cannot imagine that job. God bless our law enforcement. And they discover human remains, later confirmed to be Haylee via DNA testing. Tyler Thomas is officially arrested and appears in court. His bond is set at $1.5 million. And investigators continue searching. At the Airbnb, they find what appears to be traces of blood. And they go back through his phone, where there's even more disturbing material. Messages, conversations, violent ones, the kind that make it very clear that this wasn't isolated. Haylee wasn't his only victim. find additional images, some that had been deleted, some that he had kept. Now, they are of Haylee, and he's not in these photos, but come on, process of elimination here. Investigators say that the details in these images match the Airbnb property that he had rented, and at this point, there's no longer any question as to what happened. He admitted to picking her up, and now he'd led them to her. So just like that, the search for the 17-year-old girl becomes a homicide investigation. By early February, the focus shifts again from what happened to what can actually be proven. On February 9th, Haylee's father, Beau, and stepmother stood at the Indiana State House. They're clearly grieving the loss of their beautiful daughter, but they're also pushing for a change, advocating for restrictions for teen social media use. Because by that point, court documents have already confirmed something important. Haylee and Tyler Thomas have been communicating for months on that encrypted app Session. The next day, February 10th, federal charges are filed against Tyler, although not for Haylee's death, but for what prosecutors know, for what they can prove right now. Exploitation. Interstate travel with the intent to engage in illicit conduct. Serious charges, but not the ones that everyone is waiting for. There's no murder charge, not yet. And that's not unusual because prosecutors don't start with the hardest charge. They start with what they can prove beyond reasonable doubt. And a murder charge requires everything airtight. Every piece of evidence, timeline, detail. Plus, the fact that things happened over multiple states makes this a little more complicated. So now they need to figure out in which state should they lay the charge. But they build the case step by step by step, and they keep him in custody meantime because of the other charges and continue to investigate. He pleads not guilty, which is expected, but still hard to hear. And according to the FBI, as of early February 2026, he's only been charged with the federal crimes, not Haylee's death. The investigation is still ongoing. When something feels this obvious, you expect it to move faster, but sometimes justice moves slowly. So this is a man who knew exactly what he was doing, very methodical and even careful. And this clearly isn't the first time that he's done this. He was experienced. There were pictures of other girls found on his phone. Conversations with other young teenagers found on his phone. Haylee is part of a bigger plan. And she might not be his only victim. There may be other ones out there. He was very intentional, starting in a place that feels normal. Discord, online gaming, spaces where teenagers are already spending time. And then he moves it from public to private, from monitored to encrypted. And over time, the conversation deepens slowly, intentionally. He invests time with these kids, building trust, learning what somebody likes, what they care about, and then isolation, moving these conversations into spaces where no one can see them. And that's when the control starts to take shape. And that's where this creep was able to manipulate this intent. Beautiful young lady, very much loved and cared for by her family. She still had support systems in place and a bright future, and this man was able to control her and convince her that she would be better off leaving the safety of her family home and running away with him. He did not have any type of prior criminal history, which skeeves me out, because it meant he could be doing this a while, and that there was no warning, no red flags, nobody who said, oh yeah, I'm not surprised by this. His neighbors said he was quiet, and they really only ever saw him leave the house to take out the garbage. You'd never know, really, if you were living next door to somebody capable of something like this. So, those same words again and again. Kind, bright, and full of life. So, this case has been pretty quiet as far as regarding the actual murder investigation. However, in March, there was a different kind of progress happening, not in case or trial preparations, but what Haylee's death might change going forward. Just weeks earlier, a cold day in February, she was found in the Wayne National Forest, and now her father was standing at the State House trying to make sure that she did not become another story that people just scroll past. And when Bo spoke, you could tell just how angry and grief-stricken he was. He talked about predators hiding in plain sight, behind screens, inside games, in spaces that feel safe until they're not. And this man literally spent a year convincing her of what he wanted and ended it in as quickly as one night. It is absolutely crazy. And her parents, instead of stepping back and waiting, they leaned in. Lawmakers in Ohio began introducing what's now being called Haley's Law. The idea behind it is pretty straightforward. Make it harder for predators to do exactly what happened here. And it focuses on where all of this started, online. Things like requiring age verification on gaming platforms, making sure that if the user is a minor, that their account is actually linked to a verified parental account. Even requiring apps and games to notify parents if they make minor changes, and get consent again. There's also a push to teach our kids what this actually is. It's not always obvious that they're potentially being groomed. It's not some stranger showing up and saying alarming things right away. It usually starts slow. Someone building up trust over time, figuring out what to say and when to say it. There's also talk of creating what's called a pink alert. It would work similarly to what we all know as an Amber Alert, but more tailored to situations like this where the danger doesn't always look like people expect it to. This case kills me because she was loved, she was protected, she was not neglected, she had a family, a job, plans for her future, and all of a sudden it was too late for any of that, and it just breaks my heart. So, when there is an update on this case for me to tell you, then I will tell you about the sentencing of Tyler Thomas, but we all know that he's going to be charged. He has all the pictures, he led them to her. I have my suspicions as to what happened, and I'm not going to discuss them with you. Y'all can make your own assumptions, but I, in my head, believe that she fought back and he didn't like that. I think that maybe she was willing with part of it, but I don't know why it had to end with ending her life. The struggle of online communication hits very hard for me. If you follow me on Patreon, you'll know that I've experienced something similar like this in my family recently, and that person did go to prison, and it is completely devastating, and one of those things where you feel like you're totally blindsided by something like this, and I kind of feel it smack me in the face sometimes, if that makes sense. So, I myself have been catfished and had someone send a stranger money online. And unfortunately, I know too many people that have been convinced to do so. One of my old coworkers, her grandmother was almost scammed out of money because they called and used like a voice app or whatever and pretended to be my coworker to convince the grandma she was like in the hospital or something and she needed money. Or there is no length too far for these online predators to go. They have become unimaginable in the things that they will and can do in order to get to our kids. And we cannot allow this to happen. And I hope that they do something like this pink alert, or make more of these websites where you have to age verify, scan a driver's license, scan an ID, although that did not work in my family member's case because the ID was stolen from an older sibling. Regardless, there needs to be more safety measures in place, and we need to look out for our kiddos. We think